They turned on the music, but I'm here with Walter. He's a CCRC. We're here to celebrate coordinators. These are the people, frontline workers, that we're here to celebrate and interview and get their opinions on the industry. And Walter, thank you so much, man. Thank you for coming.
Dan, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Let us know a little bit about yourself, how you got into research, and where you currently work.
Yeah, again, so my name's Walter. I've been in clinical research now since the beginning of the pandemic in late 2020. Started out working at the University of Chicago. I was a research specialist over there, so I worked more in the laboratory there with a couple studies that were in-house at the university still, that the university sponsored, and got into a little more with clinical research and processing samples and talking to coordinators on the daily who are running different studies for different sponsors. Found an interest in it and actually started using your CRC Academy and use your YouTube channel a little bit to learn a little bit more about clinical research and the details of it, because I didn't have a big understanding of a lot of the bigger picture of clinical research outside of like my specific role at the university.
And at Flourish Research, you guys do a lot of Alzheimer's stuff, right? Or is it only Alzheimer's?
I worked at U Chicago for about 2 years, and then went over to Flourish Research and started there as a clinical research coordinator. We originally were called Great Lakes Clinical Trials.
You were with Great Lakes?
Great Lakes Clinical Trials in Chicago.
David LaHaye?
Yeah, uh-huh.
You know David LaHaye?
I might have been there after he was there.
Shout out David LaHaye. Yeah. Okay.
But anyways, we were umbrellaed into a company called Flourish Research, which is a clinical trial company. It has about 18 sites, and they have 3 main therapeutic areas: cardiovascular, infectious disease, and neurological. As a coordinator, I'm mostly in the neurological side of their therapeutic industry, and I work on a lot of Alzheimer's and mild cognitive impairment research.
What's the coolest part? Let's celebrate coordinators. What's the coolest part of your job? Coolest part and the part you love the most? Maybe those are different, maybe it's the same thing.
I think one of the cool things about especially Alzheimer's research that I really like is just the participants that are there, and working with, as much as you work with the participants that have memory impairment, you also have to work with their study partners, which is a different part of research that has more there's consenting or study partners that has to happen, as well as you kind of run through and work through the study partners just as much as you work through the participants. So I like having contact with both, with more than one person's usually there for a lot of the visits that happen for Alzheimer's research. Yeah, caregivers, study partners.
Whatever you call them.
Yeah, it's cool also working with different laws and regulations regarding people consenting that sometimes can't consent on their own. So you have to work with different state laws and regulations for that. And Alzheimer's trials as well have scales and different parts of psychometric scales. Yes, worked in a few scales, CDRs, MMSEs, ADAS-COG's another scale that eventually I'd like to get some more experience to be able to rate some of those.
I'd have to do a lot of them at our site until we get our other raters up to speed, because I'm like grandfathered in. But ADAS-COG, that's one where like they point the blocks and stuff, and you got to remember, like, it's kind of cool to see how they progress over the course of the trial.
That's one of the things that I like about Alzheimer's research. These trials are longer. You get to see people throughout and build a relationship with a lot of the people that participate in the trials, as well as the caregivers.
I like that too.
And as well as the complexity of the studies. They tend to have like a very complex protocol that you really get to dive into and creating source and all the things that are involved with Alzheimer's research. I really enjoy.
I like in Alzheimer's, or like in all psych for that matter, you know, you do rating scales with patients, and a lot of them are interview based, and ultimately you learn more about their lives than you think you would.
And they're funny people. I mean, some of the things that they remember, you get attached and build rapport, and also it's something you have to be patient with too. Sometimes you have to repeat yourself and then repeat yourself again. It's something you have to work on with patience, and I think it's helped develop some of my skill sets, having patience with participants.
What about technology? Like tech? What?
Yeah, some of the studies use technology. There's diaries, just again study dependent, but working with participants to make sure that they're compliant with different devices that are required or scales that are used throughout the study, making sure that they're doing diaries daily, using IP data, however it's required, or coming to the site. It's a whole team that not only myself, but the principal investigators on the studies, the recruiters that we have that help find the participants, and the entire study staff with raters and everybody. It's a whole group that goes into these Alzheimer's trials, and it takes a whole village to make it happen.
Do you do regulatory as well?
We have a separate regulatory department that helps put all the regulatory aspects of the.
So you're not really involved on the regulatory side?
Not myself particularly. Okay. I mean, we as soon as we get information, we always send it to our regulatory, and then they upload it. We're slowly working towards eSource for some of the studies, which is something that we just started.
You were saying with real time, or
yes, we've been using real time as a CTMS, and we're working towards using eSource for some of our Alzheimer's studies. I actually was the first person at our site to use eSource for one of our upcoming studies. So It's been exciting. We did our first screen with it, and
that's big time.
Yeah, we're slowly transitioning from paper. So getting all of our investigators on board and everybody with that. One of the reasons why I'm coming to the ACRP conference as well is just to get more information. We have a study that's a decentralized trial. Went to a seminar this morning on decentralized trials from somebody that is a monitor for the FDA. It was really some of the insight that we got was really invaluable. And,
what's the size of your organization, the site you work for?
There's about 18 sites is I think how many we have. We might be up to 20 now over multiple states in different areas of the country.
So it's a pretty
big
there's
about
network.
500. I think there's about 500 employees across all the.
So that's big, and they got everything streamlined. How do you like working for a group like that?
I love Flourish. They've put in some standard operating procedures that we didn't necessarily have when we were a standalone site. And I kind of started working with the site that I'm at now as soon as we got adopted under their umbrella. And I think those standard operating procedures that they put in place are really good for our industry and really good for our site.
You're relatively young, relatively newer to the industry. What career goals do you have in mind in the near future and maybe in the long future for yourself?
Since I'm in the Alzheimer's area, I would really like to have some more experience with some, like you're saying, some of the psychometric scales, and to be able to perform some of those. Some of them require an advanced degree, so maybe working towards that in order to be able to perform some of the scales that are required for some of the studies. We have psychometric raters, but I think that's one of the biggest problems with Alzheimer's research is it's tough to get experience on some of the scales that people require to have experience on, as well as the educational background that are required to rate some of those scales.
Are you on LinkedIn?
Yes, on LinkedIn.
Everybody, follow Walter. Underneath this video is his LinkedIn profile. Go connect. All right, this is the new generation of researchers. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you. And everybody else, follow Dan's YouTube channel.
Thank you.
Follow Dan on LinkedIn as well. Dan's, the insight that he has and the way that he's explained a few concepts that I was unsure about when I first started in clinical research was really useful, especially when I was looking for a new position, and as well when I was working on getting my ACRP certification. His handbook was something that I referenced multiple times while I was studying for the certification.
Thank you, man. It helped you pass? The book helped you pass?
Yes.
That's good. At least
and
it's not
the 4-hour
failing people.
YouTube course.
And the 4-hour one. All right. Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Appreciate it. Keep up the good work. Nice to meet you here.